Okay. Okay, so test for everybody. What is the greatest commandment?
Love.
Love what?
Love your God with all your soul and with all your heart, with all your strength.
Okay, now we shorten it and say in 4 words the whole commandment. What is it? Love God and love neighbor. Okay, good, good, good. Okay.
Love God.
Love God and then love neighbor. So right now I want, see, love God. So we have to love who? The creator, right? We were just talking about God being the creator. So, and love neighbor and love all his creation. So neighbor really means a lot more than what we have limited it to be. So I just want to have a more broader sense of what neighbor really is, and that's why I have the creation there. Here's a cross. We talked about it in this session about, so if we love God, can you all just put your hands up? Love God, okay? That's the top part of the cross. And then the second part is love neighbor. Can you all stand up for a second? Okay. Sorry, I can't show you the rest of you on the screen, but we're all going to do this. Okay, so you're going to love God again.
Yeah,
This is the second time. Okay, and then love neighbor, stretch out.
yeah,
Okay, now the third time, one more time, love God.
love God.
And now when you love your neighbor, I want you to connect with your neighbors.
Hey, neighbor.
And make it nice big, okay?
Oh,
Okay, so so what happens is if we love God, after a while, your hands get tired, just like we forget God.
Yeah.
But we constantly remember it. When we love neighbor, when we're by ourselves, we can only stand out here for a little time and then our hands start wobbly and we get tired. But if we connect with our neighbors physically, also, then we could stay up a little stronger, a little longer. So it just kind of manifests what is, actually happening there. So you'll see here, we did this with a young woman's encounter for the Carpatho-Russian girls. So we all were up, this is a sunset. We all did love God and love neighbor. And we would go between the slides, love God, love neighbor, and they would always do it. And it was a saint of a man, Father William George, who's in the picture. Now, when I looked at it, I'm like, wow, that is Father William. He died at 29 years old at a car accident, but he was such a saintly man. And I would probably say he definitely could be a saint just from his experience. He was the OCF priest from my kids' school, but beautiful, beautiful soul. And I love God putting scripture into action. So giving scripture its flesh, its body. And there's so many ways that we can do this. And sometimes we limit ourselves instead of expanding what we can possibly do. So I'm gonna take off my sweater so I can move easier. Okay, so, and then I have down agapo. Let me go back to that one, sorry. Agapo, the Greek word, I learned this from a children's book, starts with alpha and ends with omega, okay? Agapo starts with alpha and ends with omega. And anything that ends in an omega in Greek is an action verb, okay? So I love it that it's an action verb. It's not something that you could just a philosophical thought. It's something that happens, something that is, something that does. So love God, love neighbor. What does the cross tell us about life and about learning? What does the cross tell us about life? That, Okay. Oh, that's good. That's right. And when we do our cross, no, that's good. Okay. To earth. Okay. Okay. Bill, you were gonna.
His humility.
His humility. And what about life? Is life easy? It's an intersection of easy and hard of both. And I don't know how many of you have read. Life is difficult. In a book, Road Less Traveled, that's his first line. This is the 20-year anniversary, 25th anniversary edition of when the book came out. And I remembered it from so many years ago because that was the first line. And it was just really interesting how he talked about life is difficult. So if there's no cross, there's no learning. Okay, we can't learn without a cross. So maybe that's why he had to go through the cross, because that whole process is that what gives us the experience to learn. okay? No cross, there's no resurrection, as we know with Christ, is in Athanasius. So he was born at the resurrection. When does learning happen in a PET scan? Anyone know? You guys might know, somebody here? How do you know somebody's learning in a PET scan? What lights up? And the neurons, right? They fire, and so it will turn like red, so you know there's activity happening there. So this is like a normal type of thinking person. It happens, when something new that you're learning, or something that's difficult or novel. For example, if you learn to ride a bike, the first time you ride a bike, if you put one of these machines on you, your head would be lighting up because you've never done that before. What you're creating is pathways to learning, is what actually happens. So, but after you've learned how to ride a bike, anyone know what happens? It doesn't light up again. Why? But you can still ride it. It moves to somewhere else. Where does that move to? Have any of you experienced that? And you haven't rode a bike in 10 years and all of a sudden you get back on and you can do it again.
In the body.
It's in the body. Any part of the body that you guys know? It's called muscle memory. Okay, so no longer goes there. You've already learned it. Okay, so you really don't learn things that it's there when you've learned it. So the only way we really learn is if something's new, if something is difficult, if it's novel, or if it's active. You learn, it will light up more. Your brain actually works more, okay? So one of the questions, and I love this one from Father William, bless his memory, G. Gown was from Chicago. He said, he had an article, are we growing older or are we growing newer each day? He gave it to one of my girlfriends when she turned 60. He gave her this article. Anyone know, what are we growing? Older or newer each day? And why? Good. Every day we can be renewed through the resurrection. Awesome. Anyone else? Physiologically. Well, what happens to us, even our skin? How many layers of skin do we have? And what is dust made out of? It's made out of the particles of skin that dry off. Okay, that's what dust comes from. Our tongue, our taste buds change every 15 days. We get new taste buds. So when you get burnt, it takes about 15 days to get that burnt off. So our hair, what's going on with it? Is it new or old? Depends. New cells. Every day, every moment, we are growing newer, really. Even though we're growing older, but really at a cellular level, we're growing newer. So it's just a neat way to look at it. So learning actually means growing, salvation, life. That's what learning is. I teach psychology and I can't stand that the learning is under behavioralism and only that. And I'm like, oh, out of all the psychologists, I'm like, okay, it is so much more than that. Okay, that is controlling. That is not learning. in my a little bit opinion. So learning actually means growing, salvation, life, and avoiding our crosses actually delays and stunts our growth. Okay, so sometimes we don't want to deal with things because they're too emotionally difficult, too physically difficult, whatever it is that we actually, so you don't grow, you don't learn when you avoid them. So, and I have the stamps, but I didn't match my outfit, so I didn't wear them. Learning never ends on that side. Okay, how does the church teach? You guys have been part of the church for a while. How does the church teach?
Through different ways. I mean, one way could even be like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're in the church, so this is like an example.
Okay. How else does the church teach? Liturgy. That's like the excellent example. As Father Angel Gavalas, blessed memory, he was the youth director of the Archdiocese of North and South America years ago, and he said, I called him my liturgical father because he taught me how important the liturgy is. It's the everything. of our gospels and everything. So how does the church teach? What else does it do? Anyone? Do you smell anything in church? It's experiential. Thank you. So it's experiential. You experience church. Okay, you go in, you light your candle. It's everything is sensory. You're stimulated with all these sensory things that happen. So in that experientially, we're encountering, we're engaging, and we're embodying continuously. God and His church in everything and in everyone we see, touch, taste, smell, hear, move. Now I've learned there's even more senses than the 5. Aristotle was wrong. There's now scientifically more than 5. There's also, like, you know, an airplane. Have you ever been in an airplane? Your view is different when you're going up the plane and when you're going down the plane. And it's something with our balance and our perspective. I have a video on that one. That was really neat. And also balance. Sometimes you could sense things and you could just feel it. Okay, you don't have to taste it, see it, whatever, anything else. So, but we sense everything. Like remember some of the saints, the light was the Saint, what's his name? The Russian guy,
Seraphim?
that he would light up seraphim. He would be really bright, a bright light. So the light has many dimensions of light. It's not just turning on the light, okay, that we actually see it and do. So, so I want us to think about all those. So creating community learning encounters. What I did is I took some education areas and said, how can we help us learn how to learn? And taking it from the experiential direction. And then actually integrating a lot of different models instead of just taking one. So again, using the dialectic, teaching and learning, because you cannot teach unless you learn. If you think you can only teach, then you cannot teach because you have to learn, and it's a continuous process. The unity and diversity, the you and I. Again, it's dialectic means two, a relationship between two. Okay, relationship. The Holy Trinity is a model of an individual person as well as the community. Because what happened in this one, the next one. So again, it's a relationship between you and I, between I and God, going both ways, face to face with God. And we encounter Him, we engage, and we embody God and each other. So I'm going to share some educational models. First, just to make sure we all know, encountering is to come face to face with somebody. Okay, it's a short way of saying it. And then to embody something is to be an expression of or give a tangible or visible form to an idea, to a quality or a feeling, to make concrete and perceptible, to cause to become a body or part of a body is to personify, to embody, and then engage, to occupy. Attract or involve someone's interest or attention, participate or become involved in, to cause someone to become interested in or involved in activity, or to attract someone's interest. So engage. Those are important aspects of, for us to be part of. So creating a learning encounter is multidimensional framework. Learning has many definitions in our textbooks, and they're very linear, and they're very flat and limited. Like I said, in my psychology books, the chapter under learning is only about behavioralism. And I'm like, I don't think that's the only way to learn. So learning is social and relational, and and it's complex. All created things are marked with the seal of the Holy Trinity. Everything has the Holy Trinity in it. The model of the Trinity is there. And learning in the Orthodox practice is experiential. There's no two people have the exact same experience. Everyone learns differently, even when material is presented the same way. And that's from a linguist, Frank Smith, but also Father Sophroni had said the same thing, that everyone sees the same experience could be different for everyone. But he says we could also create a shared experience. And that's something that's very important for us to do, because then it gives us that, it brings us together. It makes us that unity. There's a lot of different models that we're using, but I love to do this when I was a director for religious education in one church. I would say, okay, I would go into classes and I see a teacher behind a podium, and then the kids all sitting like egg cartons, and I'm like, oh no, Jesus never sat that way, right? Did he? He never sat that way. What did Jesus do? He was on the boat, he was on the mountain, he was in the plane, he was at people's houses, on the roads. So learning was happening in a more natural sense, okay? And what happens is we take the model of the world, and then we try to make learning happen that way. Instead of us going and say, no, this is not how God, to make it more natural, we're learning every moment. So there's purposeful incorporation of all our senses and beyond, and all the disciplines are integrated in the learning experience. Because we live in a place that loves to make everything separate. In a Western society, we take things and we separate them, and we don't always put them back together. So these are other senses, some of the other major ones. Of these, you probably know the top ones. And then these are great, huge, equilibrium and vestibular, the same, used interchangeably. A sense of balance and spatial orientation, the one I was talking about before. Body awareness, like where your butt, you know where your hand is, even though you can't see, if you're not seeing it, you know where things are. There's a sense of movement, which I am really big about because I'm very kinesthetic. I can't sit still. Thermoception, you can tell if something's hot or cold, and it tells you, signals something. And you know what to do if it's one way or the other. Neoception, the ability to feel pain. And chronoception, the sense of time, how you perceive time. Okay, it's also a different type of sense. These are all giving us signals. They're teaching us. And it's not just one thing, it's most of the time, a lot of things all together. And we're trying to process these as we go along. So if you see, I have 3 different pictures here. What's this? Okay, brain, and it has like a left-right type of hemisphere thing here. What's this? A heart brain. Anyone know what a heart brain might be? There's a new science, about 20 years, neurocardiology. And we found now that there are about 40,000 neurons on the northern part of the heart. So the neurons are not only up here, they're also here. And now another study has found neurons in our gut. And we know there's muscle memory. So in my class now, I ask everyone, so then where is our intelligence? Where could it be? It's our whole person, in a sense, is that intelligence, which I am proposing that maybe that is what psychology is. That is our psyche, our soul, is the intelligences, not one kind, not the kind that you just give on a test, on a standardized test. It's the way of knowing fully. So that's why I think it's a really important, that neuroecology. And then I have the muscle memory over there with that. So it's taking all of those and putting them together. So I'm going to go show you. This is the learning pyramid, just for education wise. A lecture, you're going to remember 5%. When you're actually reading, you're going to remember a little bit more, 10%. Audio visual, you'll remember 20%. Demonstration, 30%. Discussion group, 50%. So it really increases. This is what you will remember. To me, if you haven't remembered something, you really haven't learned it, right? That's the basic part. Practice by doing. And then when you teach others, you'll remember 90%. This is called the learning styles model by Dunn and Dunn. They were at St. John's before. And it looks at everything, the sound, if it's too soft or too loud, light, temperature, seating, the emotional sides, the motivation, and it has all aspects, sociological. Are you working by yourself? Are you working in pairs, in a team, with peers, with adults, or are you changing it? physiological, perceptual, the intake, time of the day, and being able to move. Analytical, global, and all the rest for learning styles. And then multiple intelligence, you probably have all heard about the different kinds of smarts that you might be, but there's even more than that, but we'll leave it there. And this one's the most interesting to me is the learning Bloom's taxonomy, which is where we get the learning objectives from. I loved this one article, remembering resents the base. So this is where one of my students, here's what they did, put this into this actual, so that would be the, let me see which ones they started. Okay, the green, that one has, I have to change the colors, is remembering, but they have it, this was accidentally done opposite way because the girl's mother did it. And she, but I said, you know what, this is probably more accurate because this is the simple way of remembering. And then is understanding and then applying, analyzing, evaluating, and the highest, most complex way of knowing is creating. So now creating is the bigger one, which I think is more accurate than those. Okay, so it's a more complex way of knowing things. And I love this edition of it that Detmore talks about because this is only cognitive. But then there's the whole affective area, which is like your emotions and things like that, affect. And I love this word, sensory motor. So it's not just our senses, it's also our movement together. And social, our interactions with each other. And then a unified, which is putting everything all together in community. Okay, so for now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I am known. That's in 1 Corinthians. I remember this is one of the passages I loved growing up. I would always go back to this passage. And I have some mirror images there. So you can see, again, get the feeling of it. Anyone ever see this? This is on Wikipedia, multiple dimensions. Have you ever seen, some of you might be more familiar with the others. Okay, so the point of origin is where everything else starts from. And I believe that point of origin is the Trinity, one God, okay? You start off there, and then you add one line is length. And if you see in the axes, they're all different colors to give this so you can have an understanding of that. And then you add length and height, you get a sheet of paper, two-dimensional, flat. Then you add depth, height, and you get a cube. Or you get the 3 dimensions, which is us. Each of us are 3-dimensional. Then you get the 4th dimension, which here is like a relationship between 2 cubes. For me, I think it's a relationship between 2 people. Okay, so that because we're all 3-dimensional, and so it's fascinating. And then there's the 4th dimension, and then it could go into infinite dimensions. And there's awesome videos on that from France in multiple languages, talking about them. So there's a woman that has passed away now, but Marianne Brinkley, and she's created a toy, and I think I have it in a picture, in the 5th dimension. And she was saying that it's function and work. But also the 4th dimension is time, mass, is time and space. It's that relationship is also in that time and space. So this is the woman, and this is her thing that she was at Princeton and she had done this and she patented it. So you could even find her actual rendering of it. But she always talked about function with form. The way the parts bond together depends on how it will work as a body, as community. So that work, we have to find the great work relationship. The Trinity shows us that relationship, what it is. And she used to say, in my Father's house are many mansions. Or she would say, those are the dimensions. So that we'll be seeing more and more dimensions as we get there. It was her explanation of it. So participating with our whole body, soul, and spirit. I'm going to play a little bit of this. Oh, hopefully the volume will be loud. Of this incredible Dancing with God. Father Anthony Hughes. I don't know if any of you have seen this. Is amazing. So let me
Just have to make sure when we share,
that they're going to be able to hear it.
they're going to be, okay, let's go ahead and do that.
Let's see. Okay.
Christ is risen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. So once upon a time, which is how all stories like.
Oops. Oh, shoot. What did I just do? Oh, no. It's down here. Oh, no. down here. Okay.
Stand by or go through a technical.
No, it's just a Vasi, okay.
Well, it's just a symbol, Christmas exercises. If you click on it and then just make it come up on the bot.
Oh, you want, I'll just click on the other one. Yep, I put it there too, so, okay, and then I can go up ahead. Okay, the whole thing is excellent. I highly recommend it. But in the name of time, we're only gonna listen to part of them.
That's, I think we'll live without it. We'll just get.
They'll hear it, just listen to it, yeah.
American Christianity, so bankrupt, so arrogant, so prideful, and so childish, I think that time is now. We are, as you know, transformed by the company we keep. This is an obvious truth. So if the company we keep is evil, then we tend to become evil. If it is good, then we tend to become good. But what if the company we keep is God? What if we learn how to enter our hearts, where his kingdom is, where he is, where the Holy Trinity is living, and we allow ourselves to spend more time with him there in that sacred eternal place? What then? We become like God. We take on his characteristics. We eat at his table. We join the fellowship of the Holy Trinity. The great Cappadocian fathers, my heroes among the saints, used a word to try and describe the internal life of the Holy Trinity. How does the three-in-one relate to himself? The word they chose was obviously a Greek word, perichoresis, which means literally circle dance. The prefix peri means around, and choresis is the word from which we get our word choreography. Therefore, circle dance. They circle around one another in fellowship and love and harmony all the time. It is to this sacred and eternal divine dance we are invited. I find glimpses of this divine dance in our liturgies and our celebrations. In 3 of the sacraments, we do a liturgical dance. In baptism and marriage, it is around a table set up on the solea here. In ordination, the movement is around the holy altar. In the divine liturgy, we sense around the holy altar twice. And in the great entrance, the liturgical dance appears as the gifts of bread and wine are carried around the entire sanctuary. The whole creation, the whole people of God, it seems to me, is joining in this divine perichoresis. Where God's kingdom is, there is God, I think it is safe to say. If so, then the divine dance is happening right now around us and inside of us, as it is throughout the entire creation, the cosmos, for everything is circling around something else and revolving from the electrons and the neutrons around the nucleus of the atom to the planets and stars and galaxies, all revolving, all circling. Around what? Around God. What goes on inside of us is mirrored in what goes on outside of us. How beautiful this is. To become aware of it and participate more and more in it consciously is how we are transformed from image to likeness. To learn how to enter the kingdom and allow ourselves to spend more and more time there, we will not only see ourselves transformed, but the world around us. The path, the key, the door, the passport to deification lies within. And this is what it means to be human. We were from the beginning created to move from image to likeness, to join in the divine dance of the Trinity. Christ reveals this in and through himself. You will do greater things, he says, than I have done. Speaking of life after death, Scripture tells us this. Not very much does it tell us. We're always wondering what happens after death. Well, we don't know really. Scripture tells us only a couple of things. One of them is this. We don't know yet what we shall be, but we know that we shall be like him. And this, my friends, to a very large degree, is what we already are.
Okay, so I'm gonna end it there, but it's just awesome. Okay, so I close that there. And then I go back to that one. Oh, here it is. Okay. There we go. What'd you guys think? Isn't that awesome? Absolutely awesome. So, oh, why did I go back? No, I'm gonna go back to this one. Okay. Trinity is community. And the way I spell community is from community and whatever, but unity, all capitalized. And then I accent the I even more higher, because we find our identity only within the context of community. We see ourselves only through how we interact and other people see us. Also, community, the I is one God, but it's all of us. So we get a little bit of that as well. So just right now, because we ate a little bit and we've been sitting for a while, can you all stand up and we'll just do love God, love neighbor one more time to get your blood circulating so we can maximize your love God.
What they're all, love God,
And then love neighbor.
neighbor.
And then love God one more time. We have to do 3 because it's a Trinity.
You mean
And
two
then,
more
oh, I
times.
just cracked. Love neighbor.
One more
And then
time.
one more time. Love God and then love your neighbor.
I love my
Awesome.
neighbor. Oh, sweet neighbors. Thank God for neighbors.
Okay. So, and this is the word, perichoresis is the circle dance. The interwoven relationship with God and each other. Have any of you ever danced circle dances? A lot of different ethnic dances have their circle dances, right? So, and I used to teach dance years ago. And you always, sometimes you get really great groups, and then other times you get like somebody with going the other direction. But to make something look beautiful, when it was beautiful, it was truly beautiful. That it was in sync, that everyone went together. The steps all look like they're one instead of just so many people. So you look at the characteristics, and it's how do we make it all look so beautiful, and that's what the Trinity does. So when we join the Trinity in their dance, we participate in that way, and it's a beautiful thing. Circle dance, what is it? It's liturgy. It's the work of the people. It's the Holy Trinity is unceasing movement of mutual love. Okay, it's that action again. Agapo. It's an action verb for love. It's that constant mutual movement, and I love the word movement. The work of the people is actual movement. Okay, liturgy is active participation, not passive participation, but our whole being, our mind, our heart, our soul, everything to be actively participating. So Jesus and the church have always prayed the Psalms. This is one example. From the beginning of time, the Psalms was always prayed. And we pray, the Psalms are poetic, right? So that we pray them. And we also sing. There's also Psalms that we sing. And also there's times of dancing the Psalms. And I'm going to show you an example of that. So when when I went to Africa with my daughter, the chanting makes your heart just thump. You felt like you were moving, even though you weren't moving. The whole church felt like it was vibrating from the singing with their whole being. And afterwards, when the bishop had us for dinner, after dinner, he would get together, we would all be dancing, him along with us. And it was such a beautiful movement of love that we'll never forget. It was just absolutely beautiful. So, but the perichoresis is a circle dance that never stops. You know, after you do those fast ones, you're like, phew, you gotta be exhausted, but it never stops. And everything is always moving. I mean, now the more you teach, light has waves, sound has waves. What else, you guys? You guys all know. Our phones, everything is in waves, okay? And there's always movement happening, even though we're standing still. So I was sitting outside and all of a sudden I looked at the clouds and the clouds were moving. The water is moving, the air is moving. The electrical and chemical exchanges are always happening. And pandari is one of the expressions in Greek, that all things are in flux, they're always moving, always moving. So, and I love this icon of Christ, again, and it's got the four evangelists around it, but it's all circular. And then you have the angels with the candles and the priests and prophets all offering incense. And it's such a beautiful, of what it is that we're all in. And what's so nice is that, you see the angels with the candles. So if the altar servers are not in church, all of us, any of us who are in church, should go get a candle and be in front. We represent the angels. The angels do not have male or female. They're angels. It doesn't matter who you are. There should be somebody representing the angels there. So in front of the holies of holies. Okay, that is what we represent and offering. So, and it's an offering when we do that. Anyone know what these are? There's different renditions. Not the cherubim. The cherubim would be the 6 wings. These guys don't have 6 wings.
Cherubim. Many eyes.
No, these are not the eyes. These are actually called the thrones. Okay. Ezekiel saw the wheel. Da, 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 da. Yes, because the thrones are the angels that God's throne is on. And guess what? They're always moving. They're everywhere present and filling all things. They're not in one place up in heaven, up in they're always moving. And I think we don't talk about that reality as much as we need to, because there's constant movement happening. So those are depictions of the thrones. So King David danced before the Lord with all his might. Why? Because it was the day of rejoicing when the ark was coming down. They were bringing the ark back to Jerusalem. Okay, and he danced, and his wife, don't, you're embarrassing me. What are you doing? But he danced because of his joy. And this is just a beautiful, beautiful. To dance as David danced is to express the joy of worshiping the Almighty God as a whole person with his body, soul, and spirit. And the way that the church describes him, again, is the 3 types of Christ: as king, because David was king; as priest, because he's wearing the ephod, so he's wearing the priestly gear there; and as prophet. The prophet is ecstatic dancing with, like, just so happy, so filled with joy in himself. He's prefiguring the Messiah. So again, all of those 3 areas are important, and you see him with instruments and everything, music and feasting and everything else. So dancing the Psalms together is, in a sense, poetic movement. And then I looked up movement. What is dance? It's rhythm, moving rhythmically to music, typically, following a set of steps. So it's rhythm. And do you know where we learn rhythm? Even when we're probably 4 weeks old when the heartbeat. And that's why when we learn things through song, like the alphabet, we remember it much more than we do without song. Okay, so that heartbeat is how we learn, is that it gives us that rhythm that we need. So we participate in that knowledge there. So it's poetic movement is what I'm calling liturgical, is also liturgical movement. Okay, there's something, it's beautifully simple and complex going to the 2. It's very simple, but it's also very complex. It can be very deep. So participating with our whole body, soul, and spirit, our soul, the psyche, remember we said before about all of our intelligences. And we're created in God's image, and we know he's intelligent. The spirit, pneuma, is the breath, and the body is the soma. And then I have down here, do the angels dance? How and when? Anyone have examples? Do the angels dance? I have two examples. One of them was when my brother and sister-in-law lost their first child to preeclampsia. She was born prematurely. An older gentleman from the parish in Portland, Oregon, was saying, it was like a shoebox because the baby was tiny. And he says they couldn't do a funeral because the baby wasn't baptized, but they did a burial. And every time the prayers were very solemn, he'd see a little angel on top of where the baby was, and it'd be in like a prayerful mode. And then when it became a little joyous of a hymn or something else, the angel would be fluttering and dancing. Then I offered another retreat online to Panis, to Matuskas Presbyteras, whatever the tradition is, for the Carpatho Church. And they, one of the ladies shared with me when we talked about movement is that one of the children in her parish was going up to her mommy and going, "Mommy, mommy, when are we going to start dancing in church?" And her mother looked at her and said, "Honey, we don't dance in church." She goes, "But why are the angels dancing?" So she was so pure that she saw the angels dancing with their joy. And that to me is like, especially the doxology, when we say glory to God, we should be full of joy at that moment. So some churches, they even move the chandeliers at that moment. They turn on the lights, they ring the bells. And a lot of churches I go to, I just see people standing and I don't hear anything. There's no joy, no movement of some sort that moves your spirit as well. So, do angels dance? Yes, how and when? And in liturgically, they do too. Every time with, how do you dance in church and in life? How do we dance? I grew up in the 80s. I grew up with disco. I danced. Now you guys don't have places to dance.
I have a question. So when it says in church with the capital C, do you just mean like literally the physical building of the church, or by in church, you kind of mean more in a broader sense of like the community of the church?
Both, because it's in the church, and also when we get together, we are church.
Right.
So, how do we dance? It's getting together, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I will be also. And there, it's important to gather. Very much so. It's important to gather. And then I have, the dance of Isaiah. I have the example down here. Small and great entrances are a dance. They come in, they go out of Archangel Michael, who's closing the gates of paradise. And then they go in through the doors with Archangel Gabriel, who gave us the good news and we went back into paradise. Okay. So that's happening at least twice. The processions in and outside the church. I want to see more processions here. I asked to do for the Virgin Mary's, let's take the icon outside of our church. And then the chanter there stopped. He goes, "No, this church is not named after the funny. Yeah, we're not supposed to do it." I'm like, what? We should have joy. Every church is God's church. So why not go? My daughter sent me a video in Finland. They not only went outside the church, all in their altar servers and everything with candles, they went down into the subway, got out of the subway, went up somewhere else, and they're all like with incensing and candles and everything. And I'm like, what are we afraid of going just outside our churches? We don't move, and that's a problem. We need to start learning how these liturgical movements are important for us as well as for those around us. Okay, so just to think about it, the chandelier swaying, the lights and everything else, and the bells. What's the bells? Why the bells? What do they represent? Anyone know?
Angels too. Angels?
Well, the high priest in the Old Testament would put bells on. Why? Well, any bell is the presence of God. So the reason they put the bells on them is because they would also rope them in when they went to the Holy of Holies. In case they saw God and something happened and they died, they could just pull them out. So they could see if they were still alive by moving the person and pulling on them. But the presence of God is bells. So when you hear the bells, God is there, or is supposed to be there. It just reminds us. And the clergy, the laity, how we all dance together, altar servers, stewards, chanters, the chorus, the readers, we all have our participation, participating with our whole body, soul, and spirit, crossing ourselves. So you could all stand up, and we could even do these. Let's all cross ourselves, and then in the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, or I love God with all my mind, I love God with all my heart, and I love God with all my strength. That's what I do it. It's another class. How about bowing our heads and hearts? How many times? I think 3 or 4 times during the liturgy, it says, let us bow our heads, and we're supposed to keep it bowed for that prayer. But yeah, how many people bow? You know, not many. Some do, and some don't. So bowing our heads, prostrations. You know, there's the simple prostration, you know, just bowing down, or there's a full procession, we go down on our knees and then down to our forehead and then get back up. Because we sin and God gets us back up. We sin and God gets us back up. I go to the monasteries and everybody's doing prostrations. And then I go to the churches and nobody's doing prostrations. I said, okay, what is this? Do we have a different orthodoxy here and there? So, you know, why are we afraid of these movements? Or what people are going to say, or whatever. What is God going to say? So singing, chanting, reading. I love going to a church where there's more people singing around me. You know, it's so nice. Sharing the kiss of peace. If you don't know the people next to you and be afraid to say, you know, just at least bow. Christ is among us. He is and shall always be. Christ is among us. So I always turn out in the cross to the sides behind me and the sides again and bowing to the people. And we usually, in all the churches I go, somebody bows back.
Yeah.
You know, and Father Hopko says we should not continue liturgy unless we're all in agreement that God is with us. It's that important.
I just do my cross when that comes.
Yeah, but now you could just
Yeah.
standing. You can stand right now, so you can practice the standing. Get your blood going. Standing, especially after the consecration of gifts. I've seen most of the churches now, they don't sit after the consecration of gifts, but some churches, they still sit and then pass the tray. And I'm like, okay, you know, why don't we sit? Anyone know? It's in the Orthodox Study Bible.
Depending on Sundays.
No, it's always at the consecration. What happens is the consecration, what happens to the gifts? The bread and the wine, we ask the Holy Spirit to come down and change them, transform them into the body and blood of Christ.
Yeah.
That then is put on where?
On
The altar table, which is the throne of God. So God is sitting on his throne. When Prince Charles became King Charles, the moment he sat on that throne, the whole church was standing.
really?
No one sat when the king was sitting. Only the king sits. Everyone else is supposed to be standing. And I'm like, if we do this for earthly king, why aren't we doing this for the heavenly king? But we don't know what it means and why we're supposed to be doing it. And it's really important to learn why we're supposed to do it. So standing is important. In Finland, where my daughter was just at, they don't sit. It's like some of the Russian churches, they stand the whole time.
I see.
So, you know, because anyone know from a physiological, when you're standing, your blood is circulating at its maximum capacity, the oxygen is going, and you can think better. Okay, when you're sitting, even just a little, the flow slows down.
Yeah, especially.
Okay, so standing is really the way, if you want to be awake and attentive, is standing rather than sitting. So that's just another thing. Offering gifts and ourselves. When I went to a monastery in Greece, and I went up like this for communion, the way a lot of the Slavs do, and then the abbess goes, "Why you do that?" I said, "Well, I'm putting my cross on me." She goes, "Putting a cross? You go into the resurrection, you're putting a cross on?" She says, "You should be offering yourself, not you know." So then from that on, now I'm like, okay, now I go like this, and I put my hands out, because offering is like open hands. So now I got my hands to the side, then I go up, I'm offering myself to you, God, please help me. So that's offering. And then we bring gifts, we bring the bread, we bring wine, we bring oil, we bring ourselves, we bring our heart, we bring our love. And then representing the angels with candles and incense and other things. Okay, so the angels are there in church, if we see them or not. The reality is that they're there. And that's why we manifest. I love on this, it was the birthday of Panaya one year. I had the little kids at church. I gave them all icons. And then we had the one, no, I gave them icons and candles. I had one icon of the Panagia, and then the kids all brought it up, just like they did for Panagia, reenacting the story of what happened. They brought her to the temple, and all the girls were there, and then she went up by herself to the temple itself. So those type of things as a learning tool is what you remember. You don't remember just sitting there, especially when you're young, or if you're a kinesthetic learner. So those are just really important. So, okay, so we just practice some of them. You can sit or stand. History, his story versus history. Just a little thing. Yeah, you can sit or stand, whatever you want to do. And I have down the power of the pen. Anyone? His story is God's story. I heard Father Barnabas talk about it that way. Versus history. I was a history major and I learned about power of the pen. Because you know, what do you call it? The Declaration of Independence was not signed on the 4th. It was really signed on the 2nd, but we celebrated the 4th. Who knows why? It was one of these. But what does that mean? You think the power of the pen? Who's writing the story? Okay. And you're only getting a perspective on whatever history we're reading. And that's sometimes very important to, like, I didn't know until I took Father John's course, that even Eusebius, the church historian, he has a few mistakes in them. He had said that, there was two of them. He said about Origen, if you know the story of Origen, when all the other bishops in Alexandria, when there was a persecution, all of the bishops fled except for Origen. He stayed behind and was with the people. So he was teaching, continued to teach people, and they would do it in homes then. And he would continue to teach people, men and women. So when he came back, the others decided, oh, we want to take, you know, we want to be the superhero, but he's got too many people liking him. So what are we going to do? So he said, and it's in the Eusebius's book, they said that because he was teaching women, he had to cut off his balls. So that's in the history book. Did he really do it, or is it slander? The church has been full of it from ever. You know, what really is going on? So, and as a woman, how many histories are we really, you know, how many of you know, what's her name? The one that, Holy Tuesday, we sing Kasiani.
Yeah.
How
I think
many
we
hymns
celebrate
did
our
she,
feast day today.
oh, is it today?
I think.
How many hymns has she written? Anyone know?
A couple of them, something on Christmas.
She wrote
And
300,
of course, we know those big. ones.
yeah, she wrote 344 hymns.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so when we're talking about, you know, the women have been, but have not been given any attention or ignored in our histories. Okay, so now it's just finding out, you know, wait, why is this happening? Is it because of the culture that is making it acceptable or not acceptable? So we have to always look at that aspect of it. There you go. So the word that we talked about a little bit before, anthropos, meaning human being. Okay, anthropos is a human being. So so God made the human. I added, as you can see in some of my books, I go and add HU in front of all the man. Even the liturgy books at my church, I was like, whoops. Human in the image of God, he made him or them, male and female, he made them. Okay, and that was an interesting, because in the book, which is excellent book, thank you, my daughter got it for me. Becoming Human by Father Dr. John Bearer. You know, he male and female, he made them. And I think you guys, Dina had told me from here too, that Father Sapone said, does God have a gender? He's an androgen, and it is not a gender, these the two together, male and female. And then even some of the really good philosophers, psychologists also talk about, we have, you know, each in all of us, there's this constant dance within us. Okay, so I think we need to look at that more than we do. And then anthropon is the Greek word in that passage. Whoops, did I have the English one? Yep, human. So it's not man, it's anthropon. Okay, and then I learned that the word individual, because I was reading Adler's psychology, and it talks about individual psychology. And in the book, The Courage to be Disliked, he talks about the reason he used the word individual psychology because it comes from the etymology of indivisible. It's the smallest possible unit is a human being. So we are, in a sense, a map of the universe, a map of the galaxies, a map of everything is the human being. So it's really fascinating that, we look at, and then 99.9% of us is all the same. That 1 point something difference is the only difference we have, and it makes a huge difference. But we're all more the same than we are separate. The gift of learning is learning to become human. Multidimensional learning is to pick up our cross and to follow him continuously. And then again, we have Christ became human so we can become like God, St. Athanasius. And human means, actually, the etymology means a suffering earth. It's from the earth, that we're suffering earth. I can use it to make clay or something else. And the glory, my favorite passage from St. Irenaeus, the glory of God is the human being fully alive. If you're not moving, how can you be alive? If you're not, this joy comes out of you when you're fully alive. And then you see Adam and Eve, plevro in Greek also means side, doesn't only mean rib, it means both. So again, it depends on what we're focusing on sometimes, and that can get dangerous unless we really understand the fullness of what it is. And I love this one again with all the angels. So here's the seraphim, the sixth wing. Here's the thrones, and then you have the other angels there, making all of creation, making everything. So this one was interesting too, and I think I got it in Father John's class. The material world is not meant to be disposable, but to come with us into eternity. That's pretty profound. The material world, right? Matter cannot be made or destroyed, right? Is that, who's that? Who said that one? Somebody in physics.
Second law of thermodynamics.
Okay. I knew there was something there. So matter is eternal, not disposable. Therefore, garbage might even be a sin. The amount of garbage we have. New York City, come on, you guys, there's a lot of garbage here.
Now they find ways to contain it.
No, we have to find ways of not producing garbage, having our things and taking the work of doing some extra work. In my class, I come the first day with my water and I'm like, okay, I'm going to use behavioralism on you. When you bring your ecologically correct container, you get extra credit for the day. It could change your grade at the end of the semester. If you bring the other stuff, then, you don't get any extra credit for it. Because I'm trying to change the behavior. We're just used to doing things. It's easy. The easy is not always the best. And someone had given me something that said, living is giving. And then my goddaughter, when she was little, she just entered college now, said, Luna, is getting dying? And I thought about that. The more stuff we accumulate, it takes up our time, it takes up our space. It really starts to kill us because there's just so much that's around us. And giving, in a sense, is also creating. It's making something new. So I like that icon. The gift of learning is, the gift of life is learning to become human. Learning to say to God, let it be, fiat. Okay? That's what you said before. It's saying, yes, God, yes, God. Mother Saint Gabriella always said, always say yes to when everybody asks you something. If God doesn't want you to go, he'll make sure something happens and you won't be able to go. But you always say yes. So when people invite you, our thing was, you always say yes. And I'm like, oh, this is exhausting. What are we doing? But God will show us if it's not meant for us to go. But we should say yes. It is tackling our problems, our crosses, rather than avoiding them, is how we learn to say yes, and not to avoid them, which is what we do a lot, me included. This is what the learning encounter process. So the more we actively learn and do, because what we learn, we should actually be doing. When I learned about all those plastic bottles in the Pacific Ocean the size of Texas, I became more conscious of what's going on. Or the shrimp that are getting peeled by kids in Asia working 12 hours a day. So we have shrimp that's peeled. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. So teaching and learning are ultimately liturgical acts. So continually create what? We have to create experiences, okay, as much as we can. Serving God by serving our neighbor, but not only when we feel like it, but rather when God provides us an opportunity, okay, in our daily journey is living liturgically. We might not want to do certain things, but you know, if God has provided those days to do them, serving creatively is infused with the energy of love. Love as agape. And then we say, let it be. Creative people, this is from Frank Smith, a linguist who plays a lot with words. Creative people, he says, create worlds of experience that can be shared, which might otherwise not exist. They demonstrate creativeness the way they might demonstrate eagerness or sincerity, the way in which they do things. So it's trying to see again how to, and then let there be. Let it be to God, but I think I have it in the other one for now. We'll see. Serving creatively is prayer in action. So it's not only saying prayers, but it's also doing prayers in our actions. In Genesis 1:26, we're taught that God is speaking as the community, again, of the Holy Trinity. Let us, okay? And then I have the words here, be so men, create, anthropon, human. Again, it's really important. So I always like when I see the words in English and then I go back, what is the Greek word?
So I think the confusion is when the Greeks who spoke Jewish, the Jews who spoke Greek, translated the Hebrew Bible to Greek, they understood the meaning and they translated it correctly. But much later on, when we got our Western Bible, because in Hebrew, Adam is both man and
woman,
and mankind as well. I mean, both. So it depends on the context. The Jewish, the Greek-speaking Jews understood that, but much later on,
especially today.
right? Yeah.
Because that's mankind means of humankind. Yeah. But we never thought of the possibility. And only in the Woman in Ordination book, I read Callistos Ware's article in there, and he's the one that pointed it out to me. He says, and a matter of fact, I saw his, again, he learned something and he immediately did something about it. His book, the Orthodox Church, his third edition uses humankind and human instead of everywhere he had man. So you have an Oxford professor who has probably converted more into orthodoxy than any other human being, through his books. He edited, he did it himself. So I think that's amazing, that to be able to make that, to be able to be humble enough to make that change, is amazing. Callistos Ware, a Metropolitan Callistos Ware, blessed memory. Now he just passed maybe about a year ago. Was it more? Yeah, he was awesome. I'm happy to have met him. Yeah, he was Anglican and then he became Orthodox and wrote, and he was a monk from Patmos also. He's, yeah.
I think
Orthodox Church, the Orthodox Way, lots of incredible books. Sorry.
I think he was the one, the first and the earliest to translate the modern English.
He did. With Mother Maria and him had translated the Festal Meleon. They had translated the Lenten Triodion into English before we had all this computer stuff. Yes. So he really did, and he did understand Greek very well and English very well. Oh, he was a saint. He would also be another saint of the church. We got those. So learning encounters teach us how to dance. And I think we're going to bring dancing back into mode. Okay, guys, we're all you're going to have an Orthodox Church to turn disco or something. I don't know. We're gonna, I don't know about that, but always shoot is recorded. No, I mean, we need to learn how to move in a beautiful way in which love is exuded. That's what it's so important, that love is exuded. Learning encounters teach us how to dance if we are willing to learn. That's the biggest. So all learning is social, experiential, and multidimensional. Let us teach us to be able to say, let it be, which is the declarative. Remember God in the beginning in Genesis, let there be light, let there be, he declares that these happen. But for humans, he said, let us make. So we hear the Trinity coming together as one voice, and it's a project. It's no longer, so that's what you were saying before, Bill. It's the project that he created, humanity, and he finally finished his project on the cross. And that's when it became, it was perfected, not finished. It was perfected on the cross. So that's where our perfection comes through the cross. So the cross is not easy, but it's across each and every moment. We don't learn in isolation, but through all the different experiences. Sorry, what happened yesterday is I was up on the computer, and then when I put this into my bigger screen, it all, you couldn't read everything because it was on widescreen for the setting and then the standard. And I said, oh no. So I was so tired. I didn't think of it. I said, okay, let me put it in the standard, and all my things changed. So I never got to even finish all this stuff, but it's okay. Learning has a context. So creating, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And this is St. Basil of Constance Ware has it in his book. In saying that God is creator of the world, we do not mean merely that he set things into motion by an initial act at the beginning. And afterwards, which they go on functioning by themselves. On the contrary, and this is really key, creation is continual. Creation is continual, so continues to create. To be accurate when speaking of creation, we should not use the past tense, but the continuous present. Creation is not an event in the past, but a relationship in the present. So I think that's really profound. It was St. Basil who said that in between, but it's really beautiful. So it's a present. So we are made in his image and likeness, as Father Anthony said, and we're called to create in the continuous present. So in a community context of relationships similar to the Holy Trinity. So all created things are marked with the seal of the Trinity. There's that perichoresis going on all the time. It's just we have to join in. Let me see if I, and through him. So when we get into relationship with God and his church, then we have a relationship with everyone else and all of nature as well. And we talked about the Alpha and the Omega, the motion, the movement is really important. Creation is an act, not so much of his free will as of his free love. To love means to share. And that's why it's important. I think that's why we have hospitality and things like that, because it's important to share something from us with somebody else. So in Bloom's taxonomy, you saw the most complex way is creativity, and that is, and God is creator. So I'm like, yes, they finally got it. God is creator. So that we have that. So our goal is to create continuously in the present today. In creativity, this is from psychology. Even that it's born of intense study, long reflection, persistence, and interest to be creative. Let me see. I don't have a time on this thing, so I just want to make sure I'm not going too long.
5:30.
5:30. Okay, then I'm gonna.
30 minutes.
Yeah, but no, I don't want also to talk about it. So love cannot. The Trinity is undivided unity, and it's genuine diversity. And that's why I love the word community this way, because it kind of describes that whole sense. And it's not a unit, but a unity, which is very interesting as well. So love cannot exist in isolation, but presupposes the other.
This is just beautiful. If you have time,
No, but I want to also get some others that we can add on to this. Just some more secular stuff, but it also goes along with what creation is why we're here. Brene Brown, I know some of you know it. Neurobiologically, we are wired for connection. So I'm happy that others are seeing it as well. Shame keeps us away or unravels connection when we have shame. And then I also have some orthodox things to say the same thing. So cave-like thinking. I'm not rich enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not whatever enough is what the society is telling us. I'm not beautiful enough. That's why we have lenses on our cameras so we can filter them. But when you get older like me, you can't see well, so it doesn't matter. So I don't have to spend my time with that. In order for connection to happen, we have to let ourselves be seen. I love this stuff. Really seen. And it's excruciating vulnerability. Okay, and then she gives an example. We numb vulnerability. And how do we do that, especially here in America? The evidence is that we are the most in debt, obese, addicted, and medicated adult cohort in the US history. That is the proof of showing that we are avoiding our cross. Okay, and that this culture that we're living in is filled with it of avoiding that, seeing that cross, which is really how we can get to who we really are.
Not just adults too.
And is that cross the challenge of vulnerability that we're avoiding?
Yes, because that vulnerability is, Christ suffered on that cross. It hurts, it's pain, it's, but I'm not gonna get there yet. I don't want to be seen by everybody the way I really am. I'm sometimes a monster. You know, sometimes I'm not, but that's who we really are. We're not always the same. You know, that's how my professor once got me to be his aide, because I answered, he said, how many of you think you're beautiful? You raise your hands. How many think you're ugly? How many think you're rich? How many think you're poor? How many? And I raised my hand all the time. I said, what are you, schizophrenic? I said, no, it depends when you ask me that question. and then that will make a difference. All of us are all of those. We're good and bad. You know, and all the experiments show that. The Stanford prison experiment shows that. If you have a role, you're going to be somebody you thought you weren't. And you could be good or bad.
That'd be interesting.
No, it's pretty, yeah, but so, can't selectively numb emotion, good and bad come together. I didn't know, did you know the kunuraka, the twisted cookies? The reason we make them twisted is because joy and pain or sorrow come together. They're emotions that are packed. They're not separated. Yes, but that just symbolizes that. So blame is a way we discharge pain or discomfort. So we blame somebody else. And that by doing that, then I'm not it. I'm not the person. So who was the first person who to blame? Adam. Before he blamed Eve, who did he blame?
God.
Which is even worse. Yeah, so it's even worse. So Adam's sin was really bigger than Eve's sin, because he's telling God, what did you do?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that Adam got away with it.
No, but
Not-
it was just fun to play with it. Okay, now,
I would do it.
all right. Now it got stuck here.
He made-
Oops, there it goes. Okay, so there's another longitudinal study about good relationships keep us healthier and happier. Period. So it's really important. All the stuff shows that we should have good relationships. I love this study by McClelland years ago at Harvard. He got his students connected to something where they could test their T cells, their saliva or something. And while he's because it would see if you have T cells is what keeps you healthy. So what he did is he showed movies of Mother Teresa and her staff helping people. So somebody who was shaking in their bed and they would start rubbing, and they start relaxing. When people would view any acts of love, their T cells go up. And then I read Montague on touching, and when we hug each other, our T cells go up. It's a healthy response. We need each other physically as well as emotionally and in every possible way to make us healthier. In every way, in every kind of science that you could think of. So the hidden man of the heart, how many of you know Archimandrite Zacharias from where Sophronia used to be? Essex. He said, again, what she said, which is so good when you see the parallels, that bearing shame and confession is truly entering the heart and a relationship with Christ. When we acknowledge our shame. If we're too weak, he says, because some of us are too weak, we're not ready yet to share our shame, then we should have an attitude of gratitude always. So he puts both of the secular things together. So if what you see is the monster out of you coming out and you can't deal with it, he says, then at least have the gratitude, because then that will help heal you as well. So I thought that was awesome too. So just, okay, all creation. Okay. But what is the glue that helps make community a reality? Prayer is a state of continual gratitude. So then even we have some of them saying, and there's others that found that the reason gratitude is the only emotion that affects two people, not just one, is because it's not because you feel good about yourselves, but it's because when you give gratitude, it makes us feel understood, seen, and connected in a network of mutual support. So it heals for the person saying it and heals the person hearing the gratitude. Okay, and then you'll see all these, other samples of that. Okay, the Holy Trinity, we seek not to dominate, but to cooperate. And in a community, to seek what is for the benefit of all. In a community, just like in the Holy Trinity, there is distinction, but never separation. The goal of community modeled on the Holy Trinity is for diverse people to work together as one will, one energy.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's how communities are built a lot stronger that way, lot stronger.
we're doing a circle dancing.
Yeah, they,
And beautifully.
Mhm.
So this is out of my children's book that I have there, and I loved it. There was a bishop from Crete that came to our house, and this was one of the things he said, so I put it in the book. The dinner table is like the altar table. It is holy, says the bishop, and the Holy Trinity joins us while we are at the holy table. Dinner is a wonderful time because the whole family is together around the table. Father begins with a prayer, asking God to bless our food and drink, and thanking God and inviting him to join us. So the reality, the spiritual reality, as well as our physical reality of being together. Just in prayer, we bridge the time here and eternity in the same place. Encounters, how do we encounter? I'm not going to go over all these. Prayer is action. So I want to go back into, the movement part, everything I found on movement. So true prayer is an encounter. Us with God, us with each other, but one person with the other person. And yet, as soon as that encounter happens, a third person is always present in that encounter. Okay, where two or three, there I am also. So God is there and creating community. So creating community encounters continuously, give plenty of God gives us lots of crosses to learn from, but we need to say, let it be. Sorry, okay, this is really hard, but thank you, God. Anyway, I will try my best and I won't get as mad as I am. I'll ask you for forgiveness in a few minutes. We have to be real. And what happens is we get, especially, I grew up in a Greek home. So everything was, and I was a priest kid. So I had to be a perfect kid, which I wasn't. But I was more perfect than some of the other, because they're like, okay, she's got goody two shoes. So, you get into this, what role do I play? But who am I, in these roles of helping and stuff like that. So we have to just say, okay, let it be, whatever it is, whatever's happening, so that it could be for my growth. Sorry, I have a lot of text because at the end, I was way too tired to be able to do everything because I was up too late because it crashed. So we need community in order to learn also and help us do that dance in a much easier way. So this is like towards the end, the Great Commission comes to life through creating community learning encounters. And I love this. This is an icon. Have any of you been to Holy Resurrection in Albania? This is at the cathedral. This is behind the altar. And it is the moment before Christ ascended, when he said, "Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." Amen. And that's in Matthew. So go, you see, you have all my verbs, action verbs. Go is an immediate action now. Make is to create learners everywhere. Okay, people don't want to learn. Everybody doesn't want to learn. They want to stay the same. And that's the biggest lie that we saw that at a cellular level, we're changing. We're becoming new. And I even said, God even changes our hair color. Some people just don't like it, So my girlfriend goes to me, she goes, yeah, but some of us don't like it. I said, okay, well. So learners make is to create learners everywhere. And baptizing them means to immerse everyone in the unity of the Holy Trinity, in that perichoresis. That is what baptism is. We go into that dance, okay? And then teaching them to love God and love neighbor. And that's where, so let us learn to join in the circle dance of the Holy Trinity. So why don't we just make one little nice circle dance around here where,
Are we gonna dance?
yeah, I'm sure we can-
All around?
yeah, we'll dance around. Why not?
I don't know, I got two left feet.
It doesn't matter. We could just, wait, maybe we should do it out there. It might be safer.
There's
Okay.
good space there.
Yeah, I think it's better there. Okay, so we're gonna go make a circle.
Yeah. That's crazy, and let's not break the perichoresis, break ourselves.
Oh, those two. Okay, so you can make
Sorry, folks on Zoom, we can't do this. You can't join in.
make a circle over here.
Did you imagine going and living like this?
Well, we should be
Like,
connected.
sometimes I'm in-
I don't know if you want, once, we can sway a little this way, to the right, sway to the left. Okay. And you can just walk it.
If we could hold ourselves, wow.
Just walking slowly. So the more you do something, the better it gets, or easier it gets.
I think it's healthy.
Like, two guys, two guys, two guys.
At least it's not the Arabic when they start climbing up the wall.
I don't know about that. I don't know that one.
You can do this even not. You know? Okay, keep an eye, when it comes in, the only rule is you can't attach your hands to two same people, as in two different people. So come in. I'm not, or am I gonna be in? Okay, now connect hands, two different people. I'm
Yeah.
Is there any hands?
Are we
Is there any
playing-
hands?
Are we playing Twister?
No, you're untwist, yeah.
You know, one thing to do?
Okay, is there a hand?
Yeah.
Are they too far away? We all connected?
Yes.
Okay, now we can start trying to unknot. So don't let go, unless you're gonna break a hand, then I'll knot it and knot it. Well, because it's the,
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm gonna say who's going first.
right.
No.
Fine.
There's a lot of people, I mean, this is a lot. One, 10 behind the left. Yeah, we played.
Okay, oh, good, it's unknotting here, oh, good.
Right. If I could get over this arm, that'd be great. It's gonna be difficult.
Yeah.
What's the plan?
Okay, you guys, go on here. Here, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not gonna get over that. I think I need to get over this. Really get over this. Can you guys lower that thing?
I went to, and I'm gonna disconnect it.
I mean,
I think that helps.
We didn't get,
Okay, that's still a problem.
oh, you, John, over. Is it, no, over there. I think, now, you know what I might do, just make, this is still okay. Yeah, I might detach you guys here,
Okay.
just so we can have. it. Okay. All right. We unknot and become a community.
All right.
So folks on Zoom, did you do that on Zoom?
Oh, you couldn't do that too. That's a fun one. We've done it, I've done it like, all over the continent here. It's fun.
Shrika, I can't really see what's happening. It's like blurred out, but that's okay.
What? What is it?
Shrikant just asked if I could see what was happening, like people on Zoom, but we can't see.
Oh, you couldn't see it. Oh, because
That's all right.
Yeah, no worries.
We should take questions.
Okay.
If you have time.
So what happened is we nodded our hands up. We did the human knot, and you can find it on YouTube. And we unknotted each other. We didn't let go of our hands. We were still one community, but we had to untangle and then make that community. So that's what we ended up doing.
That's cool.
Okay, questions? Yes.
We should take questions. How are you doing?
I'm okay. And my daughter's gonna drive home.
Guys, go ahead.
I get the question often about compassion, how compassionate the Lord is, and how really it takes compassion to be your full self. That it is often hard to bear that shame when you're not doing it in a place that allows you to do it, or with people who allow you to do it. Now, when you're face to face with God, say in silence, looking at an icon, you're looking at an icon of Christ. That's compassion completely and totally, and it allows you to open up, you know? We don't find that in other people. We should be that for other people. So I wonder the link between safety and true love and becoming your full self, and how we cannot be ourselves without Christ. We cannot know who we are without him. And then how do we be that for other people, but especially in a time that is so dry of love, because it begins with God and people don't know God. We barely. know God.
Yeah, we're just,
We can't begin. So we can, but we'll always be beginning. So that's just something I think about often is we can be so stuck, I think, in the confines of like rules of Christianity, but really it's about being love and becoming like God. So that's it.
yeah. I think what happens is, especially with today's new dangers of predators and all these other things, and we get even more scared. I think one of the things, if you don't know 100% who is around and how much is to have a community along with you. It makes it safer. There was somebody my father was helping as an alcoholic and, drug related, whatever not. And we had him stay with us a few times. Just so he says, this is so refreshing for me because I grew up in a house, my only toys were beer bottles, and beer, he says, I grew up in an alcoholic house. It was just, and the poor kid didn't have much opportunity, and he was doing good for a whole year, and then he disappeared. So he moved somewhere else. So we lost touch. So I don't know what happened. But again, it wasn't just me, it was my family, and we had somebody, but you take some precautions. But I think at the same time, it's very hard to really truly be compassionate with everyone. But I think that's why we have so many dogs and cats and other pets today, because it's too hard for them to have relationships with people, because people are not going to sit and go when you want them to. They all have their unique other things to them, but that is a bigger cross that will really give us more learning. But we don't want to learn. So we escape, we avoid, we get obese, we get drugged, we get whatever it is to cover that, because we really desire to be together. But then after somebody says something and do something and whatever not, I mean, one of the scary things that for me, and then, I usually don't lock my house, I don't whatever. But then when I go to church, I lock my car. Why? Because one day somebody put a dead snake in my mom's car. I'm like, what sick people do we have around? So I'm like, I just don't want to, things happen. But it doesn't stop us from going to church. It doesn't stop us, maybe take a little more precautions, but it's not all people. It's just one or two sickies. But why should that determine the rest of our life? And that's hard.
It's to be that loving person in the world, to be that light. It almost, I don't know if you guys have felt this, but like immediately you're aware that you're in danger. So people don't like scares the world, it scares the world. So when you have that, and I think we need courage to be that, it's like your soul knows that you're about to be persecuted in many ways.
Do you mean that being that way puts you in vulnerable positions, or just being that way, like a lot of people will sense that and then immediately they'll have some kind of negative reaction?
I think
Don't you
so.
both?
I think so.
Yeah.
Or even the idea that that could become more Christ-like, kind of die to yourself. Like you're threatening the death of your previous self,
Right.
by acknowledging the reality of like a decadent transformation.
Sure. I guess what the implication of my question is, how does that affect like how people relate around you, how you relate to people around you, and how they relate to you? That's something that you can't control, obviously. I think that's what you were saying, is that if you become that person, then it's not like it's gonna just be all great and easy. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
it's quite the opposite.
More difficult. Point. Yeah.
It's the opposite. Yeah, and, you know, when I heard about, you know, slander happening to Origin and the rest of the, you know, then whenever I hear a story, I'm like, I don't know if it's true or not. Is it slander or is it not slander? And I've had experiences of that too. You know, people just wanting to take a project that I started and it's my project.
They
And,
just steal your work. Take credit for it. Yeah.
and I'm like, you know what? We did it for God, for the community. If they're not interested in it, you know, it's a shame. It's a shame some people do what they do. But we're not gonna change them that way. We can only pray for them, try to love them. We can't correct them, they have to correct themselves. And that's why the courage part in that book, the courage to be disliked, without Alfred Adler, it's some Japanese author. It's awesome. I just got the book on tape and I was listening to it, it was great. And he's the one that said about the individual being indivisible, that we're that unit. And he also talks about what God, you know, God created everything and everyone, and we have a relationship with everything and everyone. So that's really neat in having that relationship. I mean, what kind of, the amount of garbage really bothers me that we have as a nation. I mean, I used to remember going to Canada. Canada was all clean and America was all dirty. I don't know if anybody else had had that experience going just to Niagara Falls. You know, it's a cultural thing. Well, it's disposable. I don't need it. I now, when I use plastic forks and knives, if it's not broken, I'll take it home and wash it and put it in my my stack, that when I have a lot of people at my house, that's what, you know, I use them. They're not broken. So now, even when I bring into school, because I bring all 5 senses and all beyond, you know, I'll take things home and wash it instead of throwing it away.
I'd love to hear from as many people as possible about
Yep.
what they got from the.
Yes, please, that would be awesome.
What they got from the presentation, and what the kind of question. If you can just raise your hand and I'll come to you. So we'll start with Jim, but anybody else, then Fabrizio.
I just want to say about Boston, because I have known her, I know some of you who have met her in the 80s. And I remember seeing all these different activities that started with young adults and all the other things. But it didn't surprise me, though. The good things that you done. And today is a good example, because even with her family, they do similar things, one after another, one generation to another. Like her parents, her father was a priest, and he also had that hospitality. There's a lot to learn from each other. And I thank God today. I had a good feeling when I saw Marcel we're going to do the presentation. I knew something good was going, because that's how she does things. And I mean, this is why it's good to learn all from each other.
That's
And pass it on. You know, pass on the torch. You know, let's not keep it within our generation and not giving out to the next. Because I see many of you young people are doing that, and that's good. Continue to pass it along. You know, that's what fellowship is all about. You know.
Thank you, Jim. Folks, just raise your hand, I'll come to you in turn. We'll start with Mauricio, followed by.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was really great. Yeah, I encountered this word perichoresis like many years ago, but you know, this is like one of the best like expansions and like communications of it that I've like seen. I really appreciate it. And the idea of movement really resonated with me. I love that a lot. And I would love to like you know, explore it more. And like you gave me so many jumping off points to just go and
Start
keep
moving.
going and keep moving. Yeah, move more and keep moving. But and just experienced this myself in a way. Like I started playing tennis actually in 2018, or no, sorry, in 2020 during the pandemic, kind of feeling almost like almost like the deathly presence of like isolation and lack of moving and that stillness that was during that time. And so much grew from just like taking in a movement practice. Like I really started moving more in my soul when I started moving my body. And a lot of times like behavior precedes the mind. You start moving the body, and I think that's also research. Like the behavior, move the behavior, and like the mind follows. So yeah, that all really resonated with me. I had something else, but I'll come back to it later this time.
Thank you. Next up is, Titus.
Yeah.
So my question was something that you were talking about before, that in the context of church, but obviously you went to your personal point too, people have this resistance to moving or resistance to standing, dance, but you know, even in the context of the church, like not as a consequence of the church, I would say, but as a consequence of society. I think that was your point, that because it depends, like I think you were saying in Greece, that's it's not like that, but oftentimes in even Orthodox churches in this country, people will just be very stationary. It's not necessarily supposed to be like that. So my question simply is, and obviously, you know, this could go on, we probably talk like for the next hour, but where do you think that resistance comes from? Why? And, you know, maybe it might be interesting to touch on like different societies, how some are more open to the movement than maybe this one is.
It's fear.
Yeah.
It's fear. What are they
Fear
gonna
of
say?
what?
What are they gonna do?
Well, fear of what?
Fear of what other people can say or do. I mean,
Oh, fear
another,
of what you-
yeah, what I saw in Albania, and I thought it was awesome, is the big cathedral, you know, and the people would actually, when there's two deacons going everywhere incensing, they would actually get out of their seat, move to the aisles so they could smell the incense.
Wow.
Then they moved to the other end of the aisle, so by the time they got there, they could smell the incense. They wanted to participate in that, what was going on, that offering of the incense. And I think we're just too afraid to move because who moves in the traditional classrooms in America?
Oh, exactly. That's where it starts. That's where the conditioning.
No,
starts.
you're gonna be given medicines because you're
Only
ADHD.
during recess, and when I was in school, as a punishment, they would have collective punishment, maybe a couple kids were misbehaving, and I remember like, none of them go to recess. There was
The
so-
worst.
So recess is the only time we have to move, because we always have to be sitting for the
Yeah.
entire day we're at school, and then recess, that's when the kids go crazy, but then as a punishment.
And you can
they
come
would
back and
take that
focus.
away from
Yes.
us.
In the Russian, they do in the center.
So I want to give my feedback. I think this is very special because you're talking from like decades of experience of actually being engaged with this. And you know, I think first you heard the context of COVID, which
Yeah.
is a very radically different context of what is possible. And I would like to talk a little bit about the kind of the time where you had this like a group of kind of Orthodox folks, young folks who are trying to build something and kind of, you know, build it on a larger scale. So what the big thing I want to say is that you're speaking from a lot of experience, like maybe 50 years of experience of doing this and doing this in a passionate way in every way possible. So what you're offering is extremely valuable to all of us, because what happens is like we lose, because the reality of actually connecting like this is very real, but our idea of how we connect is very, very narrow, and we are too afraid in so many different dimensions that we are like this, you know. It's like, you know, in my meetup, there was a meetup from a dance teacher. I think you're like this.
Oh,
So he said, look, she was saying is that we are afraid. So it's like we have two hands. This is ourselves and this is others. We are afraid of actually looking deeply inside ourselves, and we are afraid of other people. And when you're like this, you're like this. What you really need is that you need to be completely open and, you know, vulnerable on your side and vulnerable to other sides. And then you can really say yes. You're saying yes to yourself, and you're saying yes to everybody.
And you really come to life.
Yeah.
And you really come to life. Similar with you, I didn't know this now I've read the research and stuff like that. I switched school districts. When I was in fourth grade, my parents moved to where we are now. I was in a multi-ethnic group to start off with. When I moved to this district, they, at that time, because my kids went later and it was a different school district then, they changed my name because I had an ethnic name. So I grew up in this other school district as Betty. I'm like, oh, I don't know who she is, but I was Betty. And then I was in the higher reading and math groups. And then when I went to the other district, I was different. So they were doing Shakespeare in fourth grade. And I'm like, what the heck is this? You know, I came in mid-year too. So then I got tracked into the more medium, whatever. So basically the story was I felt asleep all through my, until I went to college. And I went to the community college near me. And by the end of there, I had a 4.0 average, you know, getting out of the college. And then I was on fire for learning. But that didn't happen. I was sleeping through all the other time, except for having our Goya, our young adults in our church. And then I'd be alive because we had dancing in the 80s. We had so much dancing. And so I took dance at my college. And I loved it because my dad, being the priest, no, I don't want you to be at a ballet place across the street. He didn't let us go. Because, oh no, you're going to be, you know, and you're going to turn out horrible if you go there. So that was his judgment of why we couldn't do it. So I loved to dance. And so when I was in college, I took ballet, I took modern dance, I took all the dance I never had, and I loved it. Not knowing that that's probably why my academics also went up so high, because I was enjoying, there was an embodiment of this love that God has given us. And then being on that campus, it was a beautiful campus, being in nature. It was just, it enlivens us. We should be out as much as possible.
Yeah, it was just to connect one thing I was talking about Shikhan at the end of the last meeting about technology and how like it's amazing the kind of the opportunities that technology creates to connect and encounter new knowledge and encounter the people, but then really emphasize experiential learning as a component of it. And yeah, I mean, looking at a screen, it's inherently atomizing, and also even in my experience, yeah, just again like sitting at a desk, you know what that does to your body, and so there's a connection to the prevalence of technology, exciting that as being like a primary mode of connection, like as opposed to what you're describing and encouraging.
Yeah, we need to be moving more. So they have to come up with a computer that comes with us. Or something, I don't know.
Steve, it's funny, I have a friend who, when he reads books, he goes to Central Park and he just walks in.
He's reading circle dance.
Yeah, my concern is very similar to a lot of other people's, and that is that what I see in society is like an increasing entropy, and like so much of it is technologically based. Probably the pandemic just made it so much worse because it isolated people with their technology. All the way to just the envy of mankind. It's just far too much of your own experience. And I even had an ex-partner I was with for a long time, and I watched how the pandemic just kind of allowed her to shut down and not have to interact with people, and then like her mental health problems got so much worse. So I guess the post-COVID society that we live in, to me, is very, the antagonisms are kind of omnipresent. But I don't know about the rest of you, but just walking around New York City, it doesn't seem as open. People seem guarded, shut down, very suspicious of each other.
Isolated.
Offer some of your sage like wisdom. I also want, because I'm obsessed with Jungian personality theory, I wanted to ask if you were ENFJ.
Oh, I love Jung. Carl Jung.
That's
Carl Jung,
that I feel
the good side and the bad side of us, everything. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, the Myers-Briggs, I think, you know, it's 4 letters.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, what do we do in a kind of a scenario in which everybody seems like they're walking around in their own glass case? You know what I mean? What is the method forward?
Have 1, 2, 3 people over your house, your apartment. I mean, some of the apartments I lived in were pretty small. My parents always had open houses. Where we just invite everybody, because my dad being the priest, there's people that move into our area, don't have family. We became the family. So everyone would be invited to come on Pascha, on New Year's Day, and then any reason to have, so small and big, start having people over so that we get used to being together. It doesn't mean you have to have a whole spread of stuff. And what I found is that, we have, Funny Earth has been to some of our house, we get 100. Manoli's last one was 200. There's a lot of people. And I usually try to cook most of the food myself. Because I really feel, but people bring a lot of food. But it started slowly but surely, because the more they come, then the more they want to participate. I had this one guy who's been coming since he was a little kid. And then another Easter ago, he goes, I've been coming all these years. I'm going to wash the dishes this time. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. He just did it because he wanted to participate. He wanted to offer something back. I had another friend, she's dealing with depression and stuff like that. And I just kept on telling her, you can't sit still. I said, so what I do now too, because I don't have enough time to move. So I'll take my prayers on the apps and walk. And as I do my prayers, and then instead of doing proclamations, I do like a bow of my head. And then for the part that come, let me, but we have to become creative in doing what we're supposed to do. The important thing is having some conversation with God. And sometimes we do need somebody to help us stay focused, which then is continuing to go on. So, and having people over or meeting somewhere together. I think there's nothing like a home, because a home represents our heart. So, but we have small apartments. One of my apartments was so small, but I don't know how many people we even slept there that night. I don't know how we slept. I think we stacked all the suitcases up, and then we all just, found a place to stay. And that is such a blessing. We are blessed by having people over. So that's a small way to start. The other thing is to start saying, everyone I pass by, one of my Palestinian older lady friends, and she goes, every time we walk in the neighborhood, I say hi to everybody. I wave or say hi. She goes, what do you say? I said, because, the presence of God in every single person. So I always have to say hi. And I try to do it on campus now too, to say hi to everybody, because everyone's like, and then I tell them, my physical therapist would say, hold it up. Your neck is going to hurt later on. Just saying a comment, but just in love. But in a jest too. So
I
that's
just want to make one comment, which is implicit here, as we, her focus on hospitality. The missing implicit part throughout here is that she's close to Christ. And Christ, like if you're close to Christ, you're close to other people automatically.
I love that.
And that's, and it's like she didn't mention it much, but that's like the base of the fact that 200 people just show up.
Father Sophronia said that once. I had a best friend that I met through the church. And then we just started to have similar experiences in our lives and explore monasteries together and grow in our faith. And it just became so similar that we started to become like one person, right? Beautiful. And we asked Father Sophronios why. And he says, because the closer you get to Christ, the closer you get to other people.
Yes. Yeah. So true. And I would say the people that come to my house, I've had every faith. I had even one of my really dear friends is faithless. And they all come. And she's like, I don't like big crowds, but I'll come to your house. And for some reason, they all kind of mix nicely. I don't know how to say it, but it's a nice thing to do. It's my parents did it, so it's what we do.
We actually have a get together on October 26th.
Me too.
Everybody's invited.
Is your name Dimitri?
No, it's Tim.
Okay, so I say Dimitri still,
Yeah.
right? Usually for name days, you always that.
We have.
It's my name, that's it, right here.
We'll have Dimitri there, so.
Okay.
October, next month.
Awesome.
Right, anybody else wants to make comments about this issue?
Yeah, I also like that this translation of the human being, because also we're now radicalized people for the radicalized woman movement and man movement, and it's dividing society. But another way, like in Bible, also like you think about the angels, and you said about how the kids see the angels, and all often we see in the Bible that we should be like kids or like an angels, because kids are like angels, and also they are not male, not female, they are angels. So
That was so true. And you were saying about even in the research, when I conducted my research for my doctorate, I never asked for race, because biologically there's one race, the human race. At a biological level, we're all the same.
Yeah.
And I always felt that that was something to divide us. And I can never identify, because then they would put me into the female and then white, and I'm like, I ain't white. I am so unwhite. My culture is not white. And I'm like, I can't identify with it. And why are you pigeonholing me when that's not me? You know, I do identify as being human, and I am, with everybody else. And I think we don't stress it enough. And I think the reason this culture does not stress that enough is because then we see that we're in God's image. Because Archbishop Anastasios, in his video, he says when the communists in Albania tried to destroy God, what they did instead is they destroyed humanity. So the more we try to destroy God, get rid of him from all our stuff, the more we're doing injustice to us. And that's what we've done in this culture, that he doesn't exist. So when we reclaim our humanity, that we're all human, we're in God's image, we are human, then we start coming to life again. And I think we need to do much more of that.
I think that today this sets the tone. Set the tone. Dr.
All right, anybody else? Any final questions? All right, so firstly. There was a question on the floor. Let me see if the person is still there.
Oh, it's the
Yes.
one?
She's left. But
Okay.
Anyway.
We'll answer it.
We'll answer it. I'll send it to you and you can answer it. Okay. All right. So. What's that?
Yeah, I sent you the PowerPoint, and then I had an original, I had done a paper on this for the International Orthodox Theological Association's first conference, which was a really.
Let's give one chance. So folks on, just a second, let me just, to them. Well, thank you folks on Zoom. Sorry, we couldn't do it too interactive. It's difficult to do it. There is a certain chemistry in person, but hope you got something from it. If you want to say a brief comment for about 15-20 seconds, you're welcome to do that. Would anybody like to pipe in?
Yeah, I would. Shrikant, this is Yanni, and greetings to everyone, and thank you for this wonderful presentation. It's a suggestion. I like the saying hi to everyone, and I have a recommendation that we should practice that at fellowship after liturgy, because quite often people sit like with their own groups. There are people who have been seeing each other for years, and they don't really talk to each other within the same parish.
Yanni, it's difficult for everybody to hear. Can you email me the comment? I'll send it to Vasi and everybody, okay?
I'll put it in the chat. It's in the chat.
Oh, thank you. All right, folks. So thank you so much, people on the Zoom. We're going to stop the Zoom. And everybody, you're welcome to kind of hang around. What's your situation?
Yeah, I don't know. What did you want to go to dinner, or do you want to go home? What do you want to do?
Let's just mingle and.
Yeah, let's just mingle. Yeah, we can so we can just get up, which is the best thing to do, and you can just talk to each other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
And this is for you.
Got a guy on pizza.
She's like eternal revolving.